All right, so I am Mary Poplin. I'm Imagineer Systems Product Specialist, and I'm going to try to not botch this, okay? So here's what I'm doing. I am basically going to come in here, and we're going to talk a little bit about what Mocha Pro is, what planar tracking is, and how all of that works. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this. We're going to use visual aids first. So when I say that Mocha is a planar tracker, what does that mean, okay? Well, Mocha being a planar tracker means that we're not a pixel tracker, we're not a point tracker, we're not a feature tracker, we're not a camera tracker. We are a planar tracker, okay? When I say that, I mean that we are tracking pixels as they move relative to one another over time. That's kind of a mouthful. What the heck does that mean? All right? Well, pixels moving relative to one another over time means exactly this, okay? So we're going to use visual aids. Okay, this is our visual aid. We all have really good imaginations here, so we're going to pretend like our eyes are cameras and are seeing in pixel space, okay? So let's say all our eyes are cameras and we're looking at this plane moving through space. This plane has pixels on it moving relative to one another. These pixels are moving faster than these pixels, okay? And all the way down. So these pixels are moving faster than these, are moving faster than these. This is what we call relative motion, okay? Now, if I track this small section down here, I will get information for the entire plane because it will use the difference between these pixel movements to guess what's going on back here. That's how our planar tracker works. Now, when I say that we are looking at pixels and how they move over time, what I mean is, okay, we are going to track through blur. We're going to track through lighting changes. We're going to track through occlusions, okay? We're not a feature tracker. We're not a point tracker. If you're tracking points through space, like you're using a point tracker that maybe comes with After Effects or something like that, here's how it works. I'm tracking this point through space. Oh, my God, what is that? It's occlusion, okay? And the tracker just completely freaks out. It says, ooh, what's that? I'm a little ADD. I'm going to follow that now, okay? Like, Mocha is a little bit more focused than that, which means it's a lot more focused than me, okay? And that basically means that it's going to look at the objects over time. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. So we have here this really complex shot. We're trying to track the car door, okay? And what we have going on here is we have some smoke, we have some occlusions, we have a lot of stuff going on wrong with this. We have this guy's shadow hitting the car. Okay, so what I've done is I've asked Mocha to look in this shape. This is an X-spline, okay? I've asked Mocha to look in this shape and track it over time. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to track backwards. And you'll see that Mocha's going to ignore this glass and stuff moving through the shot, and there's a reason why it's going to do that, okay? Because it's looking for the main pattern. It's not looking for things that are only in the shot for 1 or 2 frames. It doesn't care about those things, okay? So we're going to track this way as well. Now, you're going to see that even though the lighting drastically changes, even though this glass comes through, even though these boards come through this area, Mocha doesn't get distracted by that. Mocha's a little bit more focused, okay? Now, because it can hang on really well, we can start to hook up some really cool modules to this. So in Mocha version 3, we have a lot of really awesome modules hooked up to our tracker. Now, for some of you guys who have used Mocha before, you understand how to use the tracker. Now, for those of you that don't, we're going to explain that in the next section, okay? Like I said, if you guys are just tuning in, this is Mocha version 3. I'm Mary Poplin. We are demoing our planar tracking software. All right, so I'm going to open up this next shot, all right? This next shot is a shot from Conan the Barbarian. If you like cheese, this movie was delicious. If you hate cheese, it stank, okay? I love cheese. I thought it was delicious, all right? So a company called Identity Effects was really nice enough to share with us. They're awesome guys, okay? And they worked on the 3D conversion for this shot, so they did a lot of roto. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how Mocha can save you with roto, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my clip tab and I'm going to bring this region of interest in. The reason I do this is so that I can non-destructively tell Mocha to only look in this section when we track. So now when we go to our track tab, it's clipped out, okay? When I export my data, it'll still be for that main size. I just don't want Mocha to look at it, okay? So now, let's talk a little bit about how Mocha can assist you with roto. And when I say assist is an important word, okay? We're a roto assist. So what Mocha's going to do is Mocha is going to be your sort of your intern, okay? It's going to be your roto intern. And what it's going to do is it's going to drive the main motion of your roto, and what you're going to do is you're going to go in and correct that, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to come in here and we're going to draw a shape around the side of this guy's face plane. Now, why are we drawing a shape around the side of this guy's face and not the whole face if we're trying to track and roto his face? Well, there is a reason for that, and it's a good one. Okay, so here's the reason. The reason is, you remember earlier how I had that handy visual aid and I slid this around and we said, hey, Mocha's a planar tracker? Yeah, everybody remembers that. Cool. All right. I'm going to repeat myself a lot because I'm driving home concepts here. Okay, so Mocha's a planar tracker. That means if I try to track this plane and this plane at the same time, it's going to get a little confused because this plane is moving 90 degrees to this plane, so it's completely different. You think of your head as a box or a low poly model. Any of you guys play video games, low poly model? If you view objects as low poly models, you will have a lot easier time tracking things in Mocha. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to track translation, scale, rotation, shear, and perspective. There's a reason why we're doing this. Okay? You can track whatever you want to get the results that you want, but translation moves like this. Okay? Rotation, obvious. Scale, obvious. Shear and perspective are not as obvious. They sort of confuse people, okay? So shear is just movement in X and Y. Perspective, okay, is that motion in Z space. So basically, X, Y, Z. Shear is just warp in X and Y. It can be a square becoming a diamond, a squib on somebody's shirt that's just kind of moving a little bit, okay? And the addition of Z space is like a door opening, a ground tilt, or in this case, the guy moving his head backwards towards the camera, okay? Z space motion. Now, we're going to track this forward a little bit. Okay, we're going to stop. What we're going to do is we're going to hook Roto up to this. Okay. Now, the way we do that, it was basically we come in here and we name this like face, only spelled right, face, rough, gosh, track. Okay, so when we do that, what we're doing is we're basically having an eye towards layer management. We want to share this with other artists. We don't work in a vacuum, okay? We work in studios. Now, you don't want to be that guy that sends off layers named layer 10, layer 20, layer 45 to some artists. They're going to, like, maybe come by your cubicle and crucify you. So, all right. So it's also important because of this, and I'll show you why. We have to link layers to one another in order to get good tracking data because we're tracking separately and rotoing separately, okay? So in order to drive that, we need to know what our layers are doing. So I call this face rough track. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make a finer roto shape, okay? Now I'm using X-splines. Now, one of the things you guys might notice is that these don't look anything like Beziers. If you want to use Beziers, you're welcome to. They're right here, okay? But I use X-splines. The reason I do that is because you saw how I just, like, relaxed for a curve, you pull tight for corners. They're really easy, really, really easy to use. They're very fast. And what happens is you can use them very quickly to get very nice shapes. And the other thing I like about them is they scale better with our tracking data, okay? So when I say they scale better with our tracking data, I mean we have perspective shifts. You don't want to have to keep adjusting handlebars as you move through a scene. This just follows the curve and stays there, okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to call this face fine roto. We're going to take our face rough track. We're going to lock it. We're going to turn the gear off because this is our track item. This says that Mocha is tracking. We're going to turn it visually off so that it doesn't get in the way anymore. We're going to click on face fine roto. We're going to go to link to track. We're going to link face fine roto to face rough track. So now our roto assistant is moving our shape through the scene based on its track, okay? So now all I have to do is come in here and I have to adjust my shapes. Now, for those of you that have used Mocha in the past, this is Mocha version 3. One of the things you might notice is that we have some new tools in Mocha version 3, all right? So you see we have this white shape around our objects that we're around our points that we're trying to use, okay? This is our new Transform tool, okay? Our new Transform tool makes it to where we can move things very, very quickly. We can start to scale them. We can transform them. We can rotate them. We can even skew them, okay? So we've been in development on Mocha 3 for 18 months. It's our largest release since version 1. Okay, our programmers have been killing themselves, and they've been doing a great job. So one of the things that we've done, I said that we had basically listened to what our customers said and tried to change things based on that. So now we added nudge tools, okay? You can start to nudge everything around very easily in Mocha. We added the Transform tool. We added another cool tool called the Join Layers tool, okay? Basically, if I want to have another shape and I want to connect shapes together to make really nice, tight roto, very nice-looking, attractive roto, or roto that you use to transform things, what you can do is you just click on this Join Layers tool, and now it's got a little hook, kind of like how you would hook an annoying comedian off the stage or me off of this stage if I tell a bad joke, okay? I just hook it right onto the points right here, hook it right onto those points, and now those points are parented to that shape for the rest of the shot, okay? This is how we end up with a nice, nice look. Okay, now, another thing we added. Okay, we now can multiply select layers. Okay, we can change all their attributes at the same time. I can change their matte colors. I can change their spline colors. I can control what I can view in this layer controls section. I can lock them all at the same time, track them all at the same time or not, and turn their visibility off all at the same time, which may not seem like a lot, but we had to tear our program down to the ground and rebuild it from scratch in order to do that. So we love you guys. All right, we can also group these into layers and change all of their attributes at the same time as well. All right, so we can also, and I know a couple of people that will be really happy about this, we can also just delete everything all at the same time. All right. Now, Another thing I want to point out is we have a new tool in our program for Roto and everything else that you do, and it's called the Dopesheet. Okay, we used to have something down here called the Curve Editor. It's in Preferences. You can load it back up if you want. But basically, unless you know what you're doing really, really well, don't do it, okay? Because it's a really great way to break your file. Now we have everything available in our Dopesheet here, and what we can do, okay, is we can very quickly get to our tracking information, and we can start to do stuff with that, all right? So, face rough track, here's our track, all right? I can select all my keyframes. Let's say that I have an edit, okay, that I've been working on for a week and a half. I'm working on shots for this edit, and the editor's come back, and he's like, oh, so I added 5 new frames to the front of the shot. That's okay, right? You can just fix that. No biggie, you know? Yeah, okay. So now all you do is you select your keyframes, you move them forward in the shot just like this. Just like, thank you, Wacom tablet. Oh, yeah. Okay, so if you don't want your layout to move around, one of the things you can do is you can go over here to lock layout. We're going to do that right quick so that I don't continue to embarrass myself in front of everyone. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're going to slide this around, okay? So we can slide our keyframes through our shot. We can also do fun stuff like copy them, move somewhere else later in the shot, and paste them. Okay, this is how you can start to get access to all your data very easily, all right? Now, one more thing I want to show you guys in our Roto tools before I put everybody to sleep, because we're talking about Roto. It's a necessary evil. It's something we got to talk about, but it's not exactly the most exciting stuff in the world. So here's what we can do. Let's say that I am a Roto supervisor, okay, and I need to, because none of us work in a vacuum, like I said earlier, we all work in studios. Let's say I'm a Roto supervisor. Unless I am really pissed at a single artist, I don't want to assign that poor artist to work on the entire Roto for all that shot, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split up my Roto among several people. So I'm going to say, you Roto the background, you Roto this foreground character, okay? And then we merge them together and pass them on to the further part of the pipeline. It's my job to check everything, so how do I do that? I basically merge a project. So what I do is I select my background, I import it into the shot that I've been working on, okay? And that will load in all my background layers that I assigned to somebody else to do. Okay. Now I can merge in my foreground character. We call him Villain because he is a villain. He's the villain in Conan. He's also like Ike from Tombstone, which is like really weird because he's like completely different looking. But anyway, so now I can like look at all of my shapes here. Okay. And we can go to all mats, turn all of them on, and I can start to sanity check everything before I send it off to the next part of my pipeline. All right. Pretty cool stuff. All right. So this is Mocha version 3, and because this is Mocha version 3 and we've made nice new changes and added a lot of new features, the newest feature we have, we're really proud of it, is called our camera solver. Okay? Now, I had talked earlier about how Mocha is a planar tracker, not a point tracker or a feature tracker, okay? Just like we're not a point tracker or a feature tracker, our camera solver is not a camera tracker, okay? And that's important to note, okay? Because a camera tracker is trying to solve for the camera that you shot the film with, okay? Like it's trying to get, okay, well that camera was shot here, so it must be right there. That's not what we care about, okay? We care about getting our planar data in 3D space because at the end of the day, most of us are compositing in 2D layer passes, okay? So it just has to move correctly in the shot in order to be put in the shot. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to track this background layer, which I already tracked so that I don't put you guys to sleep, okay? And we've tracked everything. We've tracked translation, scale, rotation, shear, and perspective on this. All right. Now, what we do is we go to our Camera Solve tab, and here's where we start to get kind of cool. In general, in the past, what I have done, and what our whole company has done, is we have included all of our awesome tools in Mocha Pro. Our Camera Solver is actually in Mocha for After Effects and Mocha Pro, okay? So, except for in Mocha for After Effects, it only exports to After Effects, all right? In Mocha Pro, we can export in FBX. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit Auto Solve for this camera. Okay, here's our Auto Solve for this camera. Now what we're going to do, okay, is we're going to basically talk about pan, tilt, zoom, small parallax, and large parallax, okay? These are the 3 types of cameras that we solve for, and they're basically the only types of cameras you'll ever have, okay? Pan, tilt, zoom is a fixed camera, and it's panning, tilting, and zooming, pretty obvious. Small parallax is a camera that's way over there, looking at objects way over there, and the parallax between objects is very small, okay? Large parallax is the opposite of that. We have a closed camera looking at objects, and the parallax is very different, okay? So if I look at you and I look at the guy behind you and I tilt my head like this, there's a lot of shift between those 2 objects, large parallax. Very easy concepts. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give you a really easy way to solve cameras, okay? Because camera solving is kind of a technical process. Most of you don't want to fuss with that. You just want to put a 3D object in a scene based on motion, okay? So I'm I'm going to hit pan, tilt, zoom. We're going to solve just to show that our auto solve worked the exact same way, okay? We're going to export our camera data. But one thing I want to point out to you guys right quick is like pan, tilt, zoom only needs one layer to solve. Parallax changes need two because they have to calculate the parallax change, all right? This is very easy concepts. All right, we're going to export our camera data to After Effects. So we're going to go over here to After Effects. I'm going to have to actually load this up because I closed it earlier because of memory on my laptop. And what we're going to do is we're going to paste this shape into After Effects, and we're going to talk a little bit about why we do that. Now, we're also going to make sure we have Cinema 4D up as well, because what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our FBX export as well, okay? Because not only do we export mocha After Effects cameras with null points for our shapes, okay, we also export our FBX files. So we're going to click on our comp. We're going to make sure we're on layer 1, because every time we post data into After Effects, we need to make sure we're on layer 1. Okay, and frame 1. The reason for that is when we go to edit, paste mocha camera, it needs to paste it on frame 1 so that it's not offset by whatever those frames are, okay? So, in this case, we have a null for all 4 points and one for the center of our surface tool and our camera data, okay? So now we do the same thing over in Cinema 4D, okay? And now in the same sort of way, I can also use my FBX to import 3D data into my scene as well. And if you want to play through that, we'll just play through it so that you can see. So now you can see it's right in the scene, okay? We don't need the camera to put 3D objects into a scene. All right, so those are our very cool new tools available in Mocha version 3. I'm going to talk a little bit about stuff that's only available in Mocha Pro, and that is going to be our remove tool, our lens tool, and our insert tool. Okay, so I don't know how many of you guys end up having to do clean plates or roto paint or any of that stuff, but that tends to be very hard and take a long time, okay? In Mocha, we solve this kind of thing very easily with roto shapes, okay? What we do is what I've done is I've basically told Mocha I want to remove this wire by basically tracking and rotoing this wire. And the same technique that I used earlier for rotoscoping that face, right? I had a main track and I attached shapes to that, right? So I end up with only a couple of keyframes in my roto, okay? That's the exact same thing we did. Same thing here. I've just basically tracked and rotoed this foreground object very, very simply and easily. And then I've tracked the water. Now here's the thing about the water. Okay, I've tracked and rotoed this water. I've aligned this plane so you can see what's going on. Let's talk a little bit about why this works. I have said in the past for other demos, and if you've watched them, I've basically said that Mocha can't track fractal patterns like water and smoke. That's true when they're fractal patterns, okay? So if you have chop on the ocean and it's not moving relative to itself or anything else, okay, fractally, it's not gonna get tracked in Mocha. But because this is a reflection and we're looking at trees, which is just a line of objects that are moving pixels relative to one another, what I can do is I can track this background very, very easily to do my remove. If you cannot get a good track on your background, you won't get a good remove. That's just it. Mocha just uses that tracking data to replace everything. So let's talk really quickly about what layer order is and why it's important. So what I've done is I have tracked this body, this wire, and this water, and I've arranged the body at the top, the wire in the middle, and the water at the bottom. Why have I done that? I've done that because Mocha holds top layers out from bottom layers, because objects at the top of the layer pile Mocha treats like being closest to the camera. Objects at the bottom of the layer pile Mocha treats like being furthest from the camera. Okay, so it holds top layers out from bottom layers. If I rotor from the foreground to the background, I'll always have holdout shapes for everything I do. This is very important. Work this way. Okay, so what I'm doing is I am telling Mocha to look in this shape, to replace this shape and hold this shape out of everything, okay? So I'm going to go to my Remove tab. I'm going to click on Wire. I'm going to go back to about halfway through my shot. We're going to render forward so you guys can see what's going on. If I've done everything correctly, Mocha will remove this automatically out of the shot. And because Mocha is looking behind the object, okay, and pulling single pixels one by one and rearranging them according to the track, it matches the grain. Okay, and if you have any sort of compression in your shot, it'll match your compression. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to do paint work on compressed footage, but when you have really smooth paint over really choppy footage, it's a disaster. If we're pulling from the same image, we will match that as well. Okay, so very, very nice. All right, now, the last thing I want to show you guys is the Lens and Insert tool. That was the Remove tool. Okay, it's only available in Mocha Pro. The Lens and Insert tool is only available in Mocha Pro as well. Okay, I said we saved all our cool tools for that, and we do. Okay, so here's the thing. Basically what I've done is I've come in here, and we have this shape. I'm going to redo this shot. basically what we have here is we have this sort of shot where this guy has a GoPro strapped to his head and he can't quite pay attention to his date, okay? All right? GoPros are great little cameras, but one of the things that you're going to have a problem with when you try to do a screen insert for this sort of shot is you're going to have to correct for a couple of things. You're going to have to correct for the lens warp, A, okay? You're going to have to correct for this motion blur here, B, okay? And C, this goes completely off screen, so if you were doing a 4-corner pin track to track this, you're going to be completely out of luck, okay? So that's not how Mocha works. Mocha can solve this in a couple of minutes, and I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to correct for is this lens curve, okay? This lens curve isn't bad. It's only slight, okay? However, trying to fit a very square corner pin into something that's slightly curved is a lot like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. It just does not work, okay? It looks weird. And our eyes are trained to notice that kind of stuff. We're trying to do invisible artwork here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically go to my lens tab and I'm going to ask Mocha to locate the lines in this shot that it thinks needs to be straight. So we're going to say locate lines, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to hit in for new line and we're going to connect the dots. Okay, in for new line, connect the dots, in for new line. In for new line. For every single new line I make, I am hitting in, okay? In for new line, connect the dots, in for new line. We have a lot of straights in here, so this means that we can get a good warp, okay? So I'm going to go to a 1 parameter distortion and a focal distance of 8 because this is a GoPro, okay? We have a whole chart, like a couple of pages in our documentation that talks about how our lens tool works and why it works, and everybody here reads documentation, right? I always get a sea of sheepish faces. So here's what you also have. We have a video section. If you go to www.imagineyoursystems.com, we'll walk you through with pictures and everything, okay? And what we'll do, Martin Brennan over here is our product manager for Imagine Your System, and he does an amazing 2-part, 15 minutes apiece demo on our lens section, and his accent is so fun to listen to. So, anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to turn our grid tool on so that you guys can see what's going on. We're going to hit calibrate, and Mocha's going to try to warp that a little bit to what it thinks the warp needs to be. Now, I don't think that warp is severe enough, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit calibrate again until I get a better curve, okay? Because this is a visual solve. It doesn't look at this and say, oh, that's a GoPro. It says, hey, I think if I do this, okay, those straights will be straight, okay? And I, as the artist, have to tell it what to do because, again, it's a computer. It only does what I tell it to do, okay? And hopefully I'm smarter than it and can give it good information, okay? Now we're going to turn our grid off because that's in the way, and what we want to do is we want to track this TV. Well, okay, I talked a little bit earlier about how Mocha is a planar tracker. It tracks objects relative to one another. It tracks pixel motion that's moving relative to one another. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to track this wall. I'm going to track this wall because this wall is moving the exact same as the television, okay? It's on the same plane, all right? Now, in a lot of like point and feature trackers, we call this offset tracking, okay? In Mocha, we just call this tracking because this is like the workflow, okay? Look for planes that are moving appropriately and track them. All right, now I'm going to turn this surface tool on, okay? You saw it earlier when we were doing our camera solve. This surface tool is basically the representation of our 4-corner pin in Mocha because Mocha doesn't do corner pins. We do surface tools, but every other compositing program in the world does either surface tools or points in space, okay? And this is our representation of what those points are. Now, because I've done a lens correction, this lines up perfectly with my corner pin shape. That's nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this a little outside of this object because basically this is moving off screen and it's very blurry, okay? If I were going to solve this shot, I would do it in 2 passes. I would put a black square here, and then I would put my inside square in order to erase my previous image and then put a new image on top of it. Because this is a demo and we're trying to keep it short and sweet, we're just going to make a bigger shape, okay? I'm going to go over here to my insert clip, and I'm going to import basically a shameless plug for my software, which is our logo and everything. It's my desktop background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to track this off screen. I'm going to click perspective on. I'm going to crank my minimum pixels up because this minimum pixels is basically, it's the accuracy of my track, okay? I want my track to be very accurate, so I'm going to track backwards, okay? I feel like a little bit of an auctioneer here. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to hang on even though this is going off screen. Now, the point of this being that if you're trying to track this with a feature tracker and you're trying to line all 4 points, you wouldn't have the points on the screen anymore, so you wouldn't have any reference points to track. Because we are tracking relative pixel motion, because that is our workflow, we're going to get this done really quickly, okay? So we're going right off screen. All right. And our track is still rock solid. Okay, so now if I want to finish this shot, what do? Basically, I go right into the Insert tab, okay? We very quickly take our insert tab. We turn our motion blur on. Okay, we turn our overlays off so that this looks really nice. And what we do is we render backwards. You saw our render earlier, how we had basically our shot, and it rendered motion blur and everything over it. That's what we're doing. We're rendering an A over B composite of our shot with the motion blur, the lens warp, and everything else. And we're also rendering a separate pass that is just the insert itself with the lens warp, okay, with its own motion blur and with its own alpha channel. So you drop it right into whatever compositing program you're using, so you don't have to go back and forth between Mocha, okay, and After Effects, or Mocha and Nuke, or Mocha and Fusion. All right. Now, that is Mocha version 3. This is the lens and insert tool. I am Mary Poplin. I am Imaginary Systems local LA product specialist. We're 3 days into Las Vegas, so I'm a little bit loopy. That is Martin Brennan. He is our product manager. This is Steve Wright. He will be on right after me doing his own demo. And if you have any sales questions, Brian Milne and Ross Shane will be happy to ask anything. If you want to join our mailing list, please get scanned. Thanks so much, guys, for putting up with me. All right. Have a great day. Okay, so next time we won't be as goofy.